Hello world, I'm Chris Pirillo, and I am leaning vegan. If there was a dial of vegan and the opposite of vegan, I'm over here. I have been over here. I've been here like my entire life, all 40 some odd years of it, and I'm about to get a little older. I mean, we get older with every passing moment, but I'm saying I'm about to turn a year older. That weighs on me heavily, and that is just one reason in the seemingly never-ending list of reasons why I'm leaning vegan. This is not something that I'm doing right now, talking about it with everybody. We're really just having a one-way conversation. I'm not doing this to proselytize. I'm not doing this to make anybody feel less about the decisions that they've made for themselves. I'm not doing this to claim it's the end-all, be-all. I guess that for me, I'm doing this because I want to mark a point in time where I feel similarly to how I felt when 20 years ago I dropped sugar, processed foods, artificial sweeteners, and whatnot from my dietary lifestyle. I feel very, very similar to that. Like, I make these decisions, these lifestyle decisions, and I generally stick to them. And for 20 years, I've stuck to that. That is part of my story. Every story is different. Every body is different. This is my decision. It's my personal decision. This is my body. It's the only one I have. It's the only one I'm ever going to have. People haven't cared about what I do with my body up until now, so I can't imagine why anybody would be angry or filled with vitriol over my decision to do this with my body. That seems to be the combative response when someone says they're leaning vegan or going vegan even. I'm not saying I'm going vegan. It just sounds so definitive. And even with the sugary stuff, even with that stuff, I always allowed myself some flexibility because A, I'm human. And B, I knew that, inevitably down the line, there may be something that I would do, and not being a perfect person may ingest something unwillingly or unknowingly, or just do it even if I knew it. So I'm not taking an extremist position. I don't really want to entertain arguments or discussions over why this is a horrible idea, because it isn't. I've gone through that process. This was not an overnight decision. This is something that I take very seriously, my health. I want to be around. This is something that I consider more and more as I get older, especially now having a daughter, with a 40-year difference between us. I want to be around. So anything I can do to stack the deck in my favor, or to specifically remove wild cards, from that deck, that might work against me, I'm more than willing to do. So I'm making this decision for a lot of reasons, all of which are very, very, very personal. So the vitriol is unwarranted, unwelcomed, and shows a lack of maturity on someone's part for not accepting a choice that they have absolutely nothing to do with. This isn't a religion for me. It may be for some. It's not for me. I say the same thing about a lot of things in my life, though. This is not any different. I believe in that personal freedom to make choices that definitely impact me. Although I think my wife cares more about my health than I do. It's true. She's probably more vegan, if I can use that label, than I am. Certainly, in regards to her own personal choices, but also with our daughters. She's always very careful about that stuff. And I can be very particular when I'm looking at that nutritional label saying, no, let's watch out for that, let's watch out for that. And the more you go on, the more you realize you got to avoid everything. I mean, I learned to write off 90% of the grocery store 20 years ago and just ignore half that stuff. Now I'm planning on ignoring more of it, but it's not as dramatic a change for me as it might be for some. I can understand how it would be a difficult shift for a lot of people who would get rid of all that stuff all at once. It's been a gradual process for me, largely in relation to where I've been throughout life and where I am now and where I'd like to be. I just want to kind of talk through it because I just remember that feeling that I had when I realized that I was done with sugar, and I had that same feeling the other day. A few days after sharing in social, my favorite part of a BLT is not the lettuce, not the tomato, or not the bread. When I shared it in social, the thought that I was leaning vegan, just very briefly, someone had mentioned, bacon's not a vegetable. I do know. And I'm not also, by the way, interested in the alternative stuffs, like, here's some faux bacon. Like, I've had it. I get that it's a product, but it's a little too processed for me. I'm good. The no. You can be a vegan and eat normal foods. What is normal? I've had to go through a lot. I've had to unlearn so much in my adult life, seeing how I was in relation to the bigger picture. That again is kind of what led me to eschew sugar a couple of decades ago, and by and large stick to that. As it wasn't even a plan; it was just a change I made, and I was like, "All right, no more sugar, done." And from then, maybe here and there, but not as a staple. And I think I've been better off for that. I've never regretted that decision ever. I've never regretted that decision ever. I feel good about that decision. I felt good about losing the weight the time that I did the first time. I also happened to low carb it at the time. So again, going from the extreme of non-vegan to vegan, if we're going back to that dial, that gauge, I lost a substantial amount of weight, and it came back as inevitably it would. It took a few years, but I've also had ups and downs with my weight since then, and have in each instance where I needed to lose fat. I would just basically count calories. I would watch how much it was I was eating. And it worked. It really genuinely worked. It's just very tedious, and it's also to me, very restrictive, given that I can't buy 100-calorie pack of something because it's processed food. B, it's just, do I really want to go through life thinking, I'm like, there's no way. And then I go back, I'm like, there's zero chance this is the way that I was designed to be. Like, fundamentally, physiologically, this is just insane. Like there are the early humans going out and saying, "Oh, you can't eat that because it's egg, and egg has this many calories. Oh, your cholesterol level is too high." I don't know. Maybe they were. I wasn't there. But I'm sorry. I'm just mentally now picturing caveman saying that. You never know. I recognize, and in learning and reading and watching and listening, I think it's possible that I can basically lean vegan, eliminate animal food products from my lifestyle, and be just as fine, if not better off than I was before. And I think that to me is the bottom line. That's it. That's all that matters to me, man. Because if I don't have my health, I ain't got nothing. So I gotta, it's critical. So I might have lost weight in the past, but my cholesterol levels were always so high. And I say levels because every time I'd been measured, whether it was after a weight loss or, if I was heavier, it didn't matter. My levels would always be elevated, specifically HDL and LDL in a ratio that was a good ratio. Like, that's what was never concerning for doctors. It was a good ratio. They were both elevated. Triglycerides were like, I'm not going to say non-existent. That's impossible, but they were nowhere near concerning levels because, again, I just didn't really eat. I haven't eaten sugar for 20 years, by and large. Exceptions to the rule, absolutely. But the fact that I've always had elevated cholesterol, and my parents have as well, I don't know if that's hereditary or if it's because of our general dietary choices. And I can't just, it's not something where I can just pick and choose. Like, to me, this is my choice, because there are different levels of this. It's not an absolute all-in, this is the way it must be, or you're not worthy of deciding not to do this. It's different for everybody. But to me, I think I'm going to have a better shot at having a normal cholesterol level, whatever that means, for the first time in my life, potentially, maybe 6 months from now. I believe I'm going to go in for a blood test as I lean vegan for 6 months at least, and beyond I is the aim. But at the 6-month mark, I want to be able to go in and get a blood test to see where the cholesterol levels are. And knowing me, you may know I hate needles. I'm not happy about that, but just to know, did this make an impact? And that, to me, is all I need. I don't, everything else is irrelevant. I don't want to hear about this, that, or the other thing, and this argument against that. I don't care. I don't care. This is what matters. That's all that matters. Because that means I'm going to be on my own, if left to myself, be around longer. My body will be around longer to be around for Jedi as long as I possibly can be. you know, I know that this is it's not a comprehensive path. There are certainly things you have to watch out for that I may have taken for granted before in eating what I had, though I've never had an issue in a lack of nutrition before. Certainly have to make sure I'm compensating properly and having a balanced experience in being a vegan. And there are ways to do it in a natural way without necessarily resorting to supplements. Some people do, but I've never been a fan of that stuff in general. The but I'm not on any medications, so I'm grateful for that. Some people are, and that's why they make the decisions. I don't want to get to the point where I need medications. I'm big into preventative medicine. In every aspect of my life, I'm huge into preventing, so that I don't have to deal with the problem outright. And you know, I there's no time like the present. Like, what are you going to wait for tomorrow? Am I going to wait for something bad to happen before I make a change? Why wait for that to happen when you know I mean, it could happen anyway, right? I mean, I may make the decision and end up being worse off than I was before. I genuinely don't know, but is it worth investigating for me as a choice? Absolutely. And understand I'm going from you know, being a full-blown adult, going from waking up in the morning, 2 cups of coffee, heavy whipping cream with the coffee, a lot of cream, 3 or 4 eggs, whatever Diana makes, you know, maybe some lunch meat, cheese snack, nuts or whatnot. A dinner might have more than likely some kind of meat product, vegetable, what have you. Maybe some light snacks, but not sugary snacks. Usually more salty stuff, nuts and what have you. You know, I definitely felt a change in the past couple days, but it's not a dramatic change, right? I mean, yeah, going from all that to not all that, that's not the dramatic change I'm talking about. I would have 3 eggs in the morning because I believed that I was better off with that meal, and that would take me through. What I've found over the past 3 days is that the oatmeal, the steel cut oatmeal with bananas in it that Diana's made, is seemingly better for me. Like, I'm not as hungry. And I mean, I monitor this stuff very carefully. Like, am I hungry? I'm not hungry. Why am I not hungry? I'm usually hungry now. Why am I not hungry? We're actually going to save money. I think that's another you know, a falsehood that floats out there. It's more expensive. Not in the way that we've been eating, and not in the way that we would plan it. We're actually going to be saving a pretty good amount of money in going mostly vegan in terms of the products that we eat, the food that we eat. I think, you know, the complexities beyond that are certainly relevant, but they just build on top of it. They just further make that case for us to go this direction with our lives, which we've kind of approached on our own volition, independent of each other. But I think Diana was already ahead of this curve in relation to what Jedi might have been eating versus me, and she'd always worry about me eating these kinds of things, because, you know, she's, you know, learned a lot in her life and knows that we could be making, you know, better decisions potentially. And I think I've just seen, you know, one too many animal mistreatment videos, specifically in relation to the food industry. And I'd be shocked if you hadn't. If you haven't, you should. There are many ways to watch these videos, but if you don't feel anything, I'd be more frightened than if you did feel something and did nothing about it. Because that's the position I was in, right? Like, having this cognitive dissonance between cattle that was led to slaughter specifically so that I might eat meat or a meat product, or have that product turned into something else. There's a question of morality, and some people have a different compass, absolutely, but to me it just boils down to, is it right to kill an animal if you're not in mortal danger? If you're not in danger, is it all right to kill an animal? If you're, you know, if your life doesn't depend on it, is it okay to kill an animal? That's a yes or no question. If your life doesn't depend on it. And that's where kind of there's a little gray area, but I think a lot of fear, uncertainty, and doubt that I recognize, because I've been there. Again, I'd get the pizza, and I eat the pizza. This pizza is good food. But that pizza was a combination of the cheese and the dairy and the and how that was, you know, how that came to be, and the pepperoni and where that came from, and then the hamburger and where that came from, and how many animals had to suffer so that I could have a pizza. I don't know if I don't know if I have the mental capacity to effectively wade through that and come out on the other side, you know, in any kind of you know, more on any kind of moral high ground. I mean, I don't know if I can justify that. I can't. That's just something I cannot do. I know too much. And once you see that stuff, I mean, yeah, you might be able to disconnect from it because you think that's the way to be, but I don't know if that's the only way to be. And maybe it's a better idea for me to do something that makes me feel satisfied in terms of hunger and my needs for nutrition, my family's needs for nutrition as well. That's very, very important. But I don't ever have to worry. I don't ever want to have to worry about having that conversation with my daughter, my little Lisa Simpson, right? If and when she asks, where did the hamburger come from, right? Where do these eggs come from? Where do all these things come from? And to show her that while it may not be indicative of the entire range of the food industry, I don't know enough. And I think there's more of that going on out there than we want to know about. And I think that's a problem, right? There's a saying, you never want to know how the sausage is made. And that's true across a variety of industries. But I don't want to have that conversation with her to say that our dogs are okay. We don't eat our dogs, but we eat these animals. Why are these animals any different? What makes them different? Because they're less cute? No, not necessarily. What's the why? That's why I guess I have an issue with some people who get upset. You know, I understand I would never want to harm a dog, but in some parts of the world, people eat animals that we consider pets. But we have no ground to stand on if we eat animals too. Like, it just doesn't. It's really, that's a big stretch. And I just can't make that argument anymore. I don't want to be a part of it. I don't want to be a part of it. I don't. You know, if you're fine with it, you know, I can't tell you who you are. I can't tell you what to be. I can't tell you how to challenge your convictions, right? I can't tell you to learn. I can't, even if you did, you know, would it matter? You've got to come to a point in your life where it's just the right thing for you. If it is, if you ever do, you know, you shouldn't feel bad about the decisions you've made based upon decisions somebody else has made, because you're not them. You're not in the same situation, man. And you know what? I felt different at 20 than I do at 40. You know, I only got one body, and trust me, I'm getting out of chairs doing the that's how you know. Okay, I'm old. Grays are coming. Trust me. Yeah, I know that you know, inevitably this is our intent. I'm not stating it as this grand proclamation, but I just kind of wanted to mark this point in time. You know, all the reasons that I'm deciding to lean vegan, specifically in relation to food that I might ingest on a regular basis. I don't know if I can go through everything that we might have and avoid everything and anything that the animals, you know, might have been a part of, but I can make a conscious decision to avoid that, and I think that's reasonable. It's practical. But if I can live now and be better for it, why wouldn't I make that decision? You know what I'm saying? Like, it's one thing if you don't know. Sometimes ignorance is bliss. It's one thing if you don't know, but when you know, when you are actually faced with, like, not just evidence, like just flat out science and data and experiences. This is knowledge, and this is bam. And then you add on top of that this, that, and the other thing. It's just like, do you ignore that? Like, you ignore that at your own peril, but that's your own peril. If it is, who knows? Maybe I'm in more peril now. I don't know. I mean, but we'll see. I guess, you know, all I got is this body, and we'll see how this body, rolls with the punches over the coming years. But that's the decision I'm making in leaning vegan. I know I'm not alone, and I doubt this is going to become a part of my identity, and that's all I'm going to talk about, kind of thing. But it's where I am today, and I'm very happy about that. I'm happy to be Chris Pirillo.